Dale, Nebraska, Dale
Fight.
Fight. And we have the other ensign here. And Felipe. And his specialty is the cranes. Heather has a fascination with cranes. And Felipe is an expert in the cranes. So I guess he'll give a talk here in a bit about it. So I guess I wasn't here last year, but last year they grew some corn. Dale helped grow it, and that's what we had last year. And I guess from that blue corn, we had turned it into the blue corn mush. Yeah, there's quite a bit left, but you guys are interested in buying it. And so this year, I guess it was in April, we was in Pawnee, Nebraska, and I guess some of the gardeners took some of the Pawnee corn seeds and grew, and Cajita will talk about that one, which I think is going to be a fascinating report she's going to do. And Dell did his part, and we went up last weekend and harvested the blue corn, and I guess Deb was impressed because we got it all shut, and which I guess last year took quite a bit of time. And so this year, we got it all prepared. Dale put it in back in his pickup in one haul. So now it's over at the elders and just drying a little more before we get to it some more. So Dale has a presentation. I think Heather has one, and then Cajita. And so this is going to be an interesting one. Thanks for all coming.
Well, I'm Dale Fight. And my wife Brenda got to come along this year to see my family in Oklahoma. So it's been a good couple days so far, and I'm glad everybody could come and see us and hear all the craziness I have to talk about. Many of you have got to hear all my stuff before, but we'll try to change it up a little bit. Please, at any time during this, stop me, ask questions. My whole presentation is nothing without questions. So I just throw it out there if you're thinking anything. We'll touch on quite a few things, and then we can do some discussion after that. So to give a little background, my family settled in Nebraska, homestead in Nebraska in 1869. And my great-great-grandfather settled about a mile north of where the Pawnee encampment was, down on Middle Creek. And I've got to take some of you around there into that area to at least look at, there's nothing left there but the lay of the land. So that first winter, 1869, 1870, my family about froze and starved to death, but they could always see the smoke rising from that encampment down at that creek. And so they went down there and became friends and trading partners, and I guess it was the start of this lifelong journey that I have through my grandfather to be kind of indebted to the help that we received and hopefully the help that we can give back. So anybody that comes on my place, they're going to see a whole crazy bunch of things. We do a lot of different things. There's nothing I won't try. I think anything is possible. So we're going to talk today about small-scale approaches to changing and controlling your own destiny and things like that. So everything is possible. This saying, I spent a lot of time on the road. And I went to Chief Puniku's, basically farmstead in I think it's in by Billings, Montana. The little town escapes me right now. Ground on which we stand is sacred ground, and it's the dust and blood of our ancestors. He was, to his group of people, a pretty good farmer. He understood what was going on. He maybe made that change a little bit more so than a lot of people did. But that's always stuck in my mind. That saying says a lot about where we've been and where we're going. And everything is, Dennis, we got a seat up here. Everything's been done. Everything's been done. Everything is cyclical. It's all in cycles. Everyone talks about the technology and all the crazy things that we've got going on. Everything's been done in one way, shape, or form. So when you realize that, and you start getting back to where it started, the soil. So our potential lies between the soil and the stars. Everything, it's wide open. So that's our domain where we can make a difference. This lovely young lady with her beautiful ear of corn, bridging the gap with our homeland ties. That's what we're trying to do. We want to work with Native people. We want to work with everyone. We're all in this together. The divide has been, I shouldn't even start on that. The down has been our divide. You guys know that way better than I do. So, go to the next one there. Got fast. Is there one back? You don't have to go back. Don't go back. We don't want to mess this whole thing up.
Sorry.
You're fine here. That's my grandfather, Adolph Thike. That was taken on some land that we had in eastern Colorado with some other family members. He was the person that, when he was a young man and before he got married, he became a trapper for the government on the Crow Reservation in Montana. He learned to love the Native people and hate the government. And so he was the person that took me, I was by his side all the time. He was the one that was tied with nature. He understood everything about it. He was better suited outside than indoors. And so the white horse, it's kind of been something my family always seems to end up riding a white horse. I don't have one yet anyway, maybe down the road. Just a picture of a few of our cattle that we raised. 3 years ago, we started our own breed of cattle. We call them Graze masters. They're suited for our environment. They're suited for a lot of different environments where it's forage based. So a little more about my background recently. 15 years ago, I ended up having multiple back surgeries, and it took me out of the large conventional type operation I was in the farming side. And it was a blessing because it allowed me to start seeing things differently. And I actually managed a medical clinic in Lincoln, Nebraska for a few years and got to see and hear firsthand what people were saying about the people in agriculture. And I went home, my dad was still alive at that time, went home and told him all about that. And he's like, they're right. Why are we hiding everything? Why are we not showing everybody what we're doing? Maybe they have ideas better than we have. The public is driving everything now, as they should. You know, I spoke at a water deal, and I'm passionate about, how sacred that water is. And in Nebraska, they pump water west of me like it's never going to happen on crops we don't even need. So, the whole water deal, that preciousness, it's everyone's water. These guys, they talk about, it's the water that's under my feet, it's mine, I own it. No, God gave us all those resources to share. And we're burning through resources so fast. I know every dirty trick, everything that's going on in agriculture, which is directly tied into how society is starting to break down. And I am certain, 100% certain, that when we get the soil right, or at least start with the soil, we can change everything. So then everyone, say at Pawnee, of the 3,000 some members, everyone would be employed via something with soil. So then domestic abuse, alcohol abuse, everything goes down. Everyone's busy. Everyone's touching the soil. The soil is the new high. The soil is the new thing that keeps families bound together because everyone's busy and everyone's working with it and appreciating it and eating the beautiful crops produced by it and then everything else that's involved with that. So I know that this can be done by the soil and getting it started correctly. Don't go, oh, wow. No, you missed too many. I'm just going to mess up my whole presentation. It's fine. Just give me a hard time. So I'm not that particular. I just want the most accountable cow on earth and the best soil on earth. So I'm not that particular on how I want things. Years ago, we were a straight bred cattle operation, registered Herefords for 70 years. Sold cattle all over the country. In 1984, we decided we're going to start building this Graze Master composite. Those are 2 Graze Master bull calves. Those 2 calves have 6 different breeds in them, and they're identical. Okay, so the people that say the composite or the hybrid theory doesn't work are the people that don't have any of those to sell you, or they're not using them in their program. That program works, and it would work here, it would work any place we've sold cattle all over. Our granddaughter, she's 4, she runs the cow herd now. We move cows about every day or every other day with our rotation, and Allie is with us most of the time to move them. So she knows to call the cows and they go to the next paddock. And so I've always been a cow guy. First and foremost, the farming was an opportunity, large-scale farming was an opportunity that presented itself that wouldn't have again in that large a land base that we were able to get a hold of and rent. It taught me a lot of things. It wasn't my lifeblood. It got me to the point, though, of what my grandfather was trying to tell me in those walks across the pasture. It's below your feet. He walked barefoot all the time. When I get my chance to walk barefoot, I absolutely love it. It's all connected. It's an absolute high. Next. So much more than cows. Anybody that's been up there sees we've got a lot of different things going on, and we want to do a lot of different things. Our consulting and meeting with groups of people and helping people now is what I hang my hat on. So many people are trapped by their own, the hurdles between their own 2 ears, and they don't know what they're capable of doing because someone has told them all along that they're supposed to do it this way or that way. So, healthy soil, that's not actually a done beetle, but it's a cool beetle, that's why I use it. But everybody's like, wow, that's a great beetle. So the earthworms in this soil, it's still a pale color in here, but what we've done on that particular test or in that picture, we do a lot of what we call bale grazing, where we take round bales, set them up in spots where the soil is depleted and maybe we need more forages. We set these bales up all across the pastures in the winter. The cows eat what they want. There's seeds in the bales. What they don't eat, they tromp in the soil, builds the soil. So that's where we bale graze 3 months before. The edge of it, the soil is light, really light colored and no earthworms. That's 3 months. So the old timer said, it will take you 100 years to build 1 inch of topsoil. We can do that in 1 year. So everything they say about the soil, the university guys and all that, I go around telling everybody in the country, we need to unlearn. Because these people have told us things to sell us things. And they've told us things to keep their families in amazing situations, houses, winter vacations, all this. Well, they've been lying to us. And they're going to have to deal with that someday when they get to heaven and try to talk themselves out of that. What we're trying to do is tell everyone that there's not a place on earth that we can't improve the soil. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm not a soil scientist, but we dig a whole crap load of soil all the time. There's always a spade in whatever we're digging. We're seeing how it's changing, and it changes fast. And that's the beauty of it. In 1999, we had machinery payments of $1.1 million a year. We have, and it was about $250 an acre machinery costs. Right now we're between $24 and $40 an acre machinery costs. We sent it packing, we didn't need it. That's our machinery now. They fertilize 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long. They deposit between 75 and 100 pounds of manure and urine per cow per day. So our 100 cows on our place, over 3 million pounds of fertilizer free. And all we have to do is put up some fences to have them fertilizer removed. Any questions here? I go through one of the things. He just like, Dell is like, Jesus, stop. So that's our machinery. We took our cow herd from a very feedlot and medically dependent on veterinarians and vaccines and feed and buying stuff to feed them, to they're all natural, like they were. And our vet bills went from $10,000 a year to $1,200. Our fertilizer bills are $0. Our fencing bill to get started was a couple $1,000s for some portable fencing. But we do it all on a utility vehicle, and so the cost is very minimal. Yeah, so we're going to get to it. And just, Deb, tell me when I've talked too much. These people got important things to do, so I don't want to hold everybody down.
Okay. That's your wife, John.
She's
I can skip a couple more slides if you'd like.
yeah, she can speed it up. Oh, and then we're done. Agriculture looks different to me, like it looked different for your people hundreds of years ago. And agriculture doesn't even have a look. It doesn't have a look. It has a feel. We were just at a deal the other day, at a grazing deal, and everyone's asking, do you have a program so we know how to move our cows to which paddock to graze next? I'm like, you're missing it. So you're still in a prescribed thinking like you're going to plant corn or soybeans. When we go out there, just the other day, we moved cows to the paddock we thought we were going to, we didn't go to that paddock. We went to a different one because that one looked better. So we skipped one and went a different direction. You can't let all those things get your mind so bound up. This is a yearling heifer in cover crops, planted where crops are usually planted in the summertime, where corn or beans or sorghum. We planted that field of cover crops and put some cattle in there. Most of that was 12 foot tall, so they eat a third and they tromp the rest in the soil. We call it soil armor. And so that builds up the soil fast. And cattle, animals are another way to, are the only way to really build the soil. You can build it so much with crops and so much by doing certain things, but the animal impact, like the buffalo, the buffalo were the premier grazers. That's why God put them all across the plains. And so, go to the next year. Bale grazing, like we talked about, this is a couple years ago. Those are poor quality soils where they're setting. We do a lot bigger bale grazing now. We'll put 40 or 50 bales in rows and fence around them. Let them eat some, then move the fence, and let them keep eating. So we're not starting a tractor every day. We're just checking cows. We're not spending time grinding hay or hauling hay, feed to them. So we save about $7,000 a winter just feeding hay like this. Plus we're building the soil. So somebody says, don't you wean your calves in the winter? There's a calf in that picture. So when we raise our replacement heifers now, those calves are kept off the cow for about 60 days. As soon as the cows dried up, they go back with the cow herd to be raised alongside their mother in the natural environment. We used to feed them in a feedlot. They got too fat. It cost us $300 a head. Everyone was happy with the animal, and the guy couldn't feed them. Biocarpeting is another way we build soil quickly. We unroll bales. You can see that the mass of basically humus that's going to go into the soil, manure, urine, all that. You can see the strips in the summer, every place we do that. We try to plant a lot of different things that other people aren't because we also have a bee program now. We brought the honeybees back, which can be done any place. It can be done here as soon as enough different forages get started. But that's summer grazing. You can see the corn standing beside. They're on some alfalfa, same coin, which is another legume and red clover. We'll let them mow it off for 2 days and get them off and let them come back. This was an NRCS plot that we took a crop off. It grew up in weeds. They told us we needed to spray it or till it. We grazed it. You can see right where the fence ran and how well they took the weeds off. So we were making about probably $120 to $150 per day grazing weeds. And if we would have done what they told us to, it would have cost us $20 an acre. So fence, the opportunity is in the weeds. They will graze everything if it's in a non-selective deal. The buffalo. This was kind of a crazy deal with all the things that you use it for. You guys know all that, what the natives used it for. I gave a talk at the Winnebago Reservation last winter, and they said, why is farming so messed up? Why is agriculture so messed up? And I said, because we don't use all the buffalo anymore. And they're like, you mean using buffalo? I'm like, no, we don't use all the parts of the buffalo. And they're like, okay, so explain it even in more detail. Look at all the things that the buffalo provided. Your people wasted nothing. In agriculture, we're doing it just the opposite. We're using maybe 1% or 5% and throwing the rest away. The picture before, the weeds. Because that's not perceived as mainstream farming, what are neighbors going to think? What are the people going to think? You have to continually work the ground or spray it or something. No. Those weeds came for a reason. And the reason was, the soil needed to be protected and provided food for the animals. So the bison, so our cow program, we mimic the bison, a large group in a small area for a short amount of time. Of course, the bison, the buffalo had the predators pushing them. We're the predators in our program. We just move them to the next path. The big difference is the hoof structure on the buffalo is different than the than the beef animals. So we would love to incorporate buffalo into some of our deals now. But while we're on the slide here, so now's the time I need to talk about. So using all the buffalo in a system, all of the buffalo, in your systems here. So your systems can be planter boxes. Your systems can be a chicken program. Your systems can be whatever you guys can dream up. Whatever you feel in the morning, just get started. Brenda and I were talking about all the land around all these buildings, and if the soil is filled up, you guys could raise so much blue corn and just carry it into the building. Yes, your homeland is where we're at. That's your true homeland. But being able to adapt any place is what keeps generations going. And you guys are the kings of adapting. So you take some of those restrictions away with the governmental stuff and all that, and it gets back to how to do it in a way that's good for the people. Then you become sovereign again. Then you take those crutches away, and then everything falls into place. So that, I always go back to the buffalo and using all the parts in how every operation is different. There's not two operations, there's not two groups of people that are the same. It's just all different. And it's so cool to go all across the country and see the opportunities. You guys have more opportunities down here in some ways than we do. Your climate's better. Our winters can get nasty. And changes a lot of how we do things most times. My garden. My garden, yes. My garden gets out of hand. My garden is, I told Brendan this year, I'm going to plant just a few rows. I'm going to keep everything orderly. Well, then I come in after everything's up and I got bare ground. Well, I can't have that. That's not right. So then I go buy seeds and plant some. And then I buy more seeds until my granddaughter won't even go into the garden because it's a jungle. That's the diversity that we need. That's the diversity that we lost in our culture, our society, and agriculture, everything. We've lost that. The diversity is the key that brings everything together. Clearly, I can't raise cabbages. I did last year, but I couldn't this year. And we do a lot of sauerkraut. That's a pretty big deal for us. But I can raise beans, apparently, really well, and 6 feet tall tomatoes. But what works one year might not work another year. We've got to see that in our cover crop deal. Everybody's like, do you plant the same thing every year? No, because it never works the same. It never works the same. We always switch something up. That's a lesson I'm learning with my garden. I was trying to plant it the same way in some, symmetrical deal. Well, I know darn well some of those plants don't complement each other that I planted them by. That's one thing. So God had everything figured out. The people before us had everything mastered because it was hand to mouth. What they were raising, they were eating, and if they weren't raising something, they weren't eating. So you get to be a good gardener, you get to be a good hunter, you get to be all that when it goes the other way. Which, the way everything's going in the world, we are going to really want to know how to raise our own food and to be self-sufficient. And I'm not trying to be a downer, but if you leave it to the politicians and all that stuff, we're in deep trouble. So yeah, that's one of our clients out in central Nebraska. Those are cover crops. They don't spray them. They have a big roller. It goes behind the tractor. They crimp them over. It provides a mat. They plant green right into them. They're large-scale farmers, 3,000 to 5,000 acres. Their equipment costs went from $3 million to $1 million because they got rid of all their tillage equipment, got rid of all these hired hands. Their soil is improved. Their production is improved, and their profits have improved. This is a partner of ours that a few of you know, Nate Belcher in Omaha. He's showing on a small scale how to crimp some cover crops, looks like rye and hairy vetch. He does it too in his garden. He provides our gardens are all seeded to cover crops already for fall. He wants that mat flat to hold that moisture, to hold the weeds back. Ancient times they planted with a crooked stick, they poked a hole, not in rows. You plant just wherever it works. Good. Oh, Brendan took this picture years and years ago. We can all make ends meet, but everyone's told us we can't, and we need to be kind of under their thumb to do it. And so our biggest thing we want to do when we go across the country is so everyone becomes independent again, and everyone does what they want to do and feels good, communities and things like that. So it's just a nice way to wrap up the whole thing. There's already info on the next one. Oh, there's what really matters. Our granddaughter Adley, she's 4. This is a field. This is a cover crop field. And she's eating spring peas that were in the mix. How many times can you go out of a farmer's field now and want to eat anything out of it? Everything has been sprayed and all that. I forgot my cards, but that's our info. We'll leave that up. And I kind of went fast through that because there's important people that need to speak on stuff. So is there any questions? And we'll be around for a while afterwards too. Good. Yes, Deb.
starting small and starting your own place, I mean, it's kind of scary because, you know, having not ever had a cow in the pasture, just horses, you know, I kind of hesitate about starting an operation. But I love what you're saying, you know, it's nice, it would be nice to have cattle or buffalo to start that machinery and fertilizer, you know, so that you could have, you know, because ultimately I'd love to have a garden. It's almost like, it would be nice to have a manual, you know, to say, you know, how do you really start? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, I'm all up for exploring that. And with our food program, we were told that the Elder Meals program can go out and buy cows. And they even have a brand that they want us to use. You know, so for me, it might be easier to gamble on, let's get something for the program, you know, instead of for myself.
But that works the same way though, Dale.
Yeah.
That even works better because it works in a larger scale than just you. So if you can do that on a few head of cows to start raising some of your beef, that's not just going to be one person doing it, it's going to be several. So then there's more people that fit into that. So the advantages of bringing the animal impact plus raising your own meat the way you guys want to raise it, but it's going to take more than just one person. But it snowballs from there. I mean, everything can come off of that. So a program coming out of like what you're doing here is way better than a single person doing it. Even though I say, you know, if we can connect and help one person at a time, there's days we only connect and help one person at a time. But my mind's also I'd like to help 5,000 at a time or whatever, you know. You've got bright people here. You've got people that know how to do things that they don't even know how to do yet. Because it comes to you. As soon as you touch that soil, you got to let it talk to you. You got to smell it. You know, when you get that soil right, it's like nothing else on earth. So back to everything between the soil and the stars is the potential that you guys have. In your operation where you want to have some livestock behind your house, pigs. Pigs will work on your Johnson grass. I thought of this when I couldn't sleep last night. We had pigs, and now we have some people helping us with pigs, because the pigs were in my mom's yard all the time, and she loved seeing the 7 little pigs zip under the fence and come out there until they tore her entire yard up. So we've certainly got to see that advantages of hogs and how they break up, you know, hard pins and demolish weeds back, you know. They plow. You know, unless you're moving them every day, then they don't, and they're busy. But if you keep them in there for a little while, I mean, they'll eat anything, they'll tear it up. The ground is really nice when they're out of there, plus they apply nutrients. And then you get to eat it. If it's a mistake, whenever you're sick of that pig running around, you eat it. You don't want to do you never want to do any program or any project that you can't eat your mistakes. Big Ag doesn't want to talk that way. Our cattle, when we don't have one that's turning out just right, we eat it. So, and that should be our first goal anyway. It's, you know, the whole cycle. So you see what you're saying.
Oh, well, I'd like to add something.
Yeah.
My name is Amy, and I'm a student over at the Pawnee Nation College, and I've come from the Rocky Mountain region.
Okay.
And so I'm really familiar with the agriculture, cattle, ergonomics, and everything. You know, coming back home here and seeing what our tribe is doing, trying to do. You know, it's really hard to identify what our strategic plan is
Right.
with the tribe as a whole, but seeing our resources here that we have the Pawnee Nation College, we've got the tribe itself, looking at other resources across Indian country, like the Tribal Buffalo Council, and, you know, seeing what they're doing, and them being able to raise up their own buffalo to feed other reservations and provide their own food for their school systems, you know, that's, you know, a really great goal. And, you know, moving it back here to home, our resources are limited, but we just need to collaborate and work together and develop plans to strategize to see where we're heading in the direction of our agriculture.
Absolutely.
And as far as the Pawnee Nation College developing their garden for the first year, I mean, it was a really great success. And it was good to sit back and see from the beginning to the end. Until today, they just, you know, tilled it up and get ready for the cover crop and stuff. And it was a really, you know, good experience. It's like to see and witness. And, you know, a lot of people out in the community, they, you know, come to see and are interested in that. But like with Deb, you know, was, you know, wanting to utilize, you know, for the elder program. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of land out here. No, this isn't our native land, and the soil that you're talking about, that a lot of certain things, the vegetation won't grow, and we have to build it up and take care of it and, you know, get it up to where it's healthy.
Right.
You know, and what I would like to see also is that, you know, our tribe or, you know, college start purchasing a lot more other land out there. I mean, we have a lot of land in our jurisdiction to, you know, go out and start a ranch, and that will provide not only what our goals are, but also help increase the economic development,
Absolutely.
create jobs for people.
You bet.
You know.
It all falls into place.
place.
And you come from a great region where you got to see things that are ahead of the Midwest. So when we were in Colorado 3 or 4 years ago, we got to see the permaculture deals they were doing up in the mountains, like the hugelculture, where they're burying, you know, the trees with some manure compost, with dirt, making it in mounds and planting trees there at 9,000 feet elevation, and the peach trees never freeze because that's warm enough coming out of there. So everyone's migrated to Colorado to really get that whole deal going. The coasts are way ahead of us. Nebraska down through here, we're 10 years behind all that. But, so you come from a great area and you're seeing that this has a lot of potential. So everyone can do it because everyone on earth has been created from an agrarian base. God created us all from an agrarian base. So, even though we don't think it's in us to do it, it is. It's bred into us to do it. We just need something to unlock it. I'm a big fan of letting everyone else do my work. So you got a young guy around here, maybe they're not part of the Pawnee family, that wants to run cows. Let them get the start of those cows on some land you guys want to improve, until someone in here can learn from that person. The whole transition, it just, like the Winnebago, I sat at the table with those guys now, and we're taking some of their land back they had leased out to people, and they're doing just exactly what you guys want to do down here. So they've been mistreated in those land leases, the land's depleted. When a guy like me comes to the table and talks to BIA and BLM and the white farmer, I know what I'm talking about. And they've been pushing people around in those deals purposely since the inception of all this craziness. So, sorry, go ahead.
What is that, agrarian?
Ag-based, from the ground, yeah. So, you guys got it.
When I asked her, what does that mean?
She's got it. Well, I throw out crazy university words sometimes, so, you know, confuses everyone.
Dust to dust.
Dust to dust, exactly, go ahead.
Well, thanks for coming out and
Sure.
doing the presentation. Yeah, it was pretty inspiring to hear you said your grandpa, what's your grandpa's name?
Adolf.
Fields. My name's Lyle Fields, and you know, it's appreciate you guys' efforts in Nebraska, what you've done with our corn and everything, and you know, kind of, you know, Davey talked about with kind of talks about our strategic plan, and it's kind of inspiring to hear that we may go in that direction, whereas we're a generation from that there, because my grandma, they lived off the land there, had their own garden,
Sure.
and we're just a generation that's been apart from there. And you know, when you mentioned 1869, your family was, you know, looked at the Pawnees, and the Pawnees helping there. It's kind of how the Pawnees have been to help people there, and it actually made me almost want to cry there. It made me think of my relatives that when we were removed in 1875, my mom always talked about when her relatives was a small child, and we were forced to walk in Nebraska and everything. And it's awesome to hear you lending your expertise on being a good steward of the land there, as far as with the Pawnees, how we can put that direction there. And you know, I've seen this happen with the college, you know, with their first garden, you know, selling down there, and even with our council talking about, you know, just like you said, taking back our land that we lease there, and let's put cattle on there, and let's kind of go that direction there. And it's be awesome to hear that and see that kind of where we're going, you know, because just from all that corn we've had there and in the past there, I didn't really realize how we had all that corn until I was educated on that there. And it's,
So you guys, the biggest hurdle that you guys have is already done, because you're starting to do these things. It's people can't even get to that point of trying anything new. Like I give my farmer friends crap all the time. I said, you guys don't really raise anything. They're like, oh, we grow everything. I said, no, you have soil that's on life support that you put in a specific plant that's engineered to do well if you put a whole bunch of stuff on that soil that's on life support. Plant a garden. When I planted my first garden 5 years ago, my first 2 years, we raised nothing but cheatgrass and sandburs, and it's different. You know, when we were farming several thousand acres, you planted it, you put it in, you did whatever. But your biggest hurdle is already done, because you've opened that up. People within the tribe have opened that up. So the sky's the limit on this. You know, like I've told everyone, I'll do whatever I can to make that transition go well for you guys.
yeah, and it's great to hear the information bring this being taken and everything, to for other elected officials to hear this, and you know, just great information you bring back there. And I just think it's just so awesome to hear about your grandpa and how they look at the Pawnees and they share that friendship there. And you know, thank you for being here. I've got to step away. I wanted to stay hear the whole presentation there, but my
No,
staff
it's
is out there. I want to hear the corn part there with the Katia and everybody else who's done their efforts on the corn. I've been watching on Facebook that Davy's presented there, and it's awesome to see that there. You know, when I first came back around here, we had an elder, June Eckelhawk, who did a garden a couple of years back behind the 64 there, and she was raised with the elders, and I helped her, you know, and it was just awesome experience for me to do that there, because I've never done nothing agricultural, and I think it's great that we're doing that there, and thank you for you and your wife's time, and everybody who's done the efforts up there in Nebraska. Thank you. Let's step out there.
All right, thanks.
What's closing there?
So yeah, sorry, probably went long, but we're just getting started. We could talk all day and figure all this out by dark. Somebody else?
You referenced a couple of times, but I don't know if I fully grasped it, it's a genetic thing? Are you doing genetic cows or something?
So yeah, it's like always, I pointed as I've been trying to build the perfect beast. So straight bred cattle really serve only one purpose. That's to make really great crossbred cattle. Corn that you see out in the field, Farmer's corn, that's a hybrid, that's hybridization. That's a couple different strains or whatever in it. So the hybrid vigor, that corn comes up faster. Just like these calves with multiple breeds in them, their vigor at birth, they just jump up. Calves are smaller, they jump up, huge labor savings. So you don't have to have so many people doing it. So you use, like in our deal, in a composite deal where we have 4 breeds, you breed breeds together to each other that complement each other. So you would never breed 2 breeds that do the same thing. So like the Obrac breed that's in our composite is for meat and forage ability. The Semitals, they're going to have better meat and they're really good on water. They take way less water. Crazy, it's dairy free from switching, it makes no sense. The Hereford is that cow that always is bred every year as a cow. The Red Angus that's in it, she's a maternal deal too. A really good milker and a good forager too. So everything, so that's the genetics we're using are complete breeds. We're not like, setting under a microscope doing it because if you've done it long enough, you can see what works in your area and things like that. So it's a complicated deal. So I'm glad you asked. Sorry I wasn't clear on that.
Thanks, Dale. That was interesting. Next, we have Darryl Wildcat. He's part of our Vice President? Darryl,
Pardon?
you're Vice President?
Yes.
Yeah. He's the Tribal Council. Glad you're here.
I'm Kenita Bernowski, and I was the intern this summer for the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project. So, I went up to Nebraska, and there's a couple more gardens than this that are growing corn for us in Pawnee, for the Pawnees. But these are the ones that we took data on this summer. So there's about 10 of them. And a couple here in Pawnee that luckily Sunny was down here to watch over and take data on that here. But you can see they're all pretty small, like backyard gardens with only a couple hundred seeds in each one. But we went through eagle corn, sweet corn, blue flower corn, and blue speckled corn. And last year, these are the varieties we took data on. We focused on eagle corn, blue corn, and white flower corn. So there was a lot of data last year about this stuff, which is pretty cool. But this year, we added a couple more varieties. The blue speckled corn, we had quite a few gardeners grow this for us this year. And this is the data we were looking at from an old book that Ronnie O'Brien helped us look through from Willenhead. And these old guys kind of watched and observed the Pawnees way back when and just took down notes and observations about the corn. So we were able to read this book and look at these traits and try to figure out what we're looking for. We want to get back to these old traits or this old corn that we're trying to bring back these varieties. So this is the particular traits we looked at for the blue speckled corn. You can read through. The red flower corn was another one we looked through. We only had one gardener up in Nebraska this year grow that for us, but it's really rare variety. We only have a handful of seeds of red flower corn, so it's really exciting to see a full garden get grown of this stuff. And it did pretty good this year. I can't wait to see the ears and how good the kernels came out this year. But yeah, there wasn't as much information on the red flower corn, so it'll be exciting to get more data on it, to really see what we got going. And another really exciting garden we had going was the sweet corn. And that we had hardly any kernels of. And the garden we got this from was from just one ear that last year we got that grew. And the kernels ended up looking like it was sweet corn. So Ronnie up in Nebraska decided to grow just those kernels to try to get the sweet corn from that one ear. So I'm really excited to see when this full garden gets harvested and we get to see the kernels from that to see what we actually grew. We still don't know for sure because we have this description, but it didn't exactly turn out like this. Some of them did. Some of them had no ears. Some of them had 2 ears. Some of them were way taller than we expected. And overall, we thought it'd be a short season corn or just take a couple months to grow, but it's taking longer than we expected. So we're all excited to see what comes out of that garden. hopefully it's, you know, what we expect, some sweet corn, so we can get that variety coming back stronger and grow it more and more in the years to follow. So there's a bunch of other gardens besides those 3 varieties that we looked at. And this is the garden here at the college that unfortunately I didn't get to work on much this summer, but like I said, Sunny did, and a lot of the college students here in Pawnee got to work on it. And it looks amazing. I know it turned out pretty good. So this is the garden I spent most of my time in. It's at the Central Community College in Hastings, Nebraska. And that's where I got to spend all my time in on the dorms there. So I spent all my time in this garden pretty much, like hoeing it, picking weeds. But Ronnie started growing it in May, is when she started planting it. And you can see she planted it in the traditional Pawnee way in mounds, surrounded by sunflowers, which got really tall. They were Urgera sunflowers this year. And she put about 5 kernels in each mound. And this is going through week by week. So you can see week 1 where it started, week 2 where they started popping up, week 3 where they got a little bit taller. And this is still going through week by week, as you can see left to right, top to bottom. Last year the gardeners kind of grew more at the same time, and the corn came up more at the same pace. So we got to compare the corn as it grew, like week by week. We could see like, oh, this corn's growing this tall, this corn's growing this short. This year was a bit messier, so we didn't get to really compare the corn week by week. So I kind of have it more, each garden is differently this year. But yeah, this is blue speckled corn again. And since me and Ronnie were there the whole time, we kind of took notes on every single plant that was grown. As you can see, we have little sticks in there that we marked, and we mapped every single mound, took care of every single corn that we could. Yeah, and then took down more data as tassels grew and silks grew out of the corn. You see the sunflowers got super tall this year. They're about 12, 13 feet tall. They were super tall this year. You can't even see the corn in the bottom one. Was the last week I was there. I was there till the last week of July. And you can see the corn is taller than Ronnie there. The second last week I was there. So that corn probably got about 8 feet tall, maybe 7 feet tall. But yeah, there's the last week. Have about 7 sheets of data to collect on how long the leaves are, how wide the leaves are, every different part of the corn that you can imagine. We had to take data on, and we did this for so many of the plants, but it was fun. It's exciting. And Sunny came up once in a while, as you could see, to help us with the hoeing and taking care of the garden stuff we weren't sure what to do. Really came up and helped. And that was last week. I got to go back up right before everything was harvested. Unfortunately, there was a storm that blew a lot of the corn down, but luckily most of it was mature enough that it won't affect the ears that much, that it got blown over. But it's just crazy to see these storms come through that strong and just knock everything over. And this is one of my favorite gardens to visit. This is Dell's place in Pleasantdale. He grew some blue flower corn, of course. And this is when I got there, beginning of June. But of course, the corn was already planted and already started growing. But it was about 2 feet tall then. And I tried to take pictures around the same place so you could see how much it grew each couple of weeks I got to go visit. You could see his farm in the background and slowly disappear as the corn got taller.
And the forage, sorghum and everything was growing up.
Yeah.
Behind cover crops. And I didn't want to use any chemicals on it. We didn't get it cultivated, so it became a forest in between. But actually, when the wind came, I think it held it all up. So it was okay.
Yeah, it was all really big, so I could see how a storm would completely blow things down like it did at the college garden. But yeah, that was last week, right before everyone came up and harvested. I'm sure some of you have seen this garden. But yeah, this garden is amazing because there's so much of it. You get to see a huge variety of what's going on with this corn. Like this picture in the far right is just a tassel that is starting to grow kernels and silks at the same time. It's not supposed to do that. It's pretty cool to see. And then you see the bottom left corner, there's a corn with like 5, 6 tillers coming out. Corn nowadays doesn't have tillers really, and if they do, they try to take it out. They don't want them, but it's cool to see more tillers because it's growing more ears and it's more kernels that we get to eat or plant later. So it's really interesting, cool to see stuff like that happen. And in a big variety like this, we get to see more and more cool things happen with this corn. So here's the red flower corn garden that was in Mason City. As you can see, it's just a little backyard garden, but it's exciting to see this corn grow. Again, it's pretty rare. There's only a handful of these kernels. And I can't wait to see it harvested soon. You can see it's still maturing right now. That was just last week, that red here there. And I wanted to give each of these gardens their own slideshow because they deserve it. These gardeners worked hard on it. But just a picture of each one of them at least. This is the white flower corn that was grown up in Arcadia. And we grew quite a bit of white flower corn last year. There was probably 4 or 5 gardeners that helped us with that last year. This year was just this one garden. But it was exciting to get more data on it to compare it to last year because it was a bit different. Even though it's the same white flower corn, it was grown a couple 100 miles further from where it was last year, closer to the loop river. So it probably had more nutrients, and I know it was wetter there. But it was exciting to see it grew up faster. So the season was a lot shorter than last year, and the ears were a lot taller. Like most of the ears grew up about eye level, so it was about 5 feet tall, which was pretty cool. Last year they were a bit shorter. So it'll be interesting to analyze the data and compare it to last year. And we had another garden of eagle corn, and we had several gardens down here, but again, I didn't really get to see that. I was up in Nebraska. This is the eagle corn garden at Genoa. And eagle corn is, again, a really short season. So by the time I got there, there was already tassels growing, silks growing. And by the time I left the last week of July, there was already a ton of ears to pick. As you can see, that's one of them. And it was pretty exciting. I got to see like, the end of a cycle for a corn. All this corn's pretty different, pretty cool to watch if you compare it. Again, some more blue speckled corn. That's what was mostly grown from different gardeners this year. This is in Shelton. This is Ronnie's place actually. She grew some for us this year. And she's really fun to watch her garden. She likes to try different things. As you can see, she has little stakes sticking up with twine to help hold the corn up. And she likes to try different things. I really learned a lot from her. But as you can see, the winds did come through, and that was last week. Kind of tore down the corn a bit, but she had enough ears that were mature and growing good enough that I hope the storm didn't affect it all. And I had to throw this garden in. This is my parents' garden here in Pawnee. That's my mom. I this garden. But it was pretty cool. We actually started our garden on Earth Day when we received the kernels, which was in April, and most everyone else started their garden in May. But we had a lot of trouble with the bugs last year when we tried to grow for dove, and so we thought yeah, and the birds and the raccoons. But we thought growing a little bit earlier would help, and it actually did a lot. The bugs didn't really get to us this year, so we had a pretty good crop. It was exciting. I got to pick actually right when I came home. The day I came home, the corn was ready, and it was a good time gardening that. And this is the last garden, which is the most exciting, I thought. It was the sweet corn, which I said, again, was very rare. We haven't grown it in decades. We just got it from that one year on these kernels to grow. But as you can see, it's just a small row that Ronnie grew. She tried to grow it in mounds again. And yeah, we really babied this kind of, even though it was on a hard spot to grow, like right against that hot brick, and against the hot sidewalk. but I think that helped it a bit, make it stronger as it grew. But as you can see, Ronnie's cool little tricks that we had to work in there to keep it safe with the stakes and the twine to keep it all together. So we were in there like every day working on it. As you can see, it got pretty tall. It's supposed to be like, more bushier than the other corn. It did look more bushier. It just grew a bit taller than we thought, and it's taken a little bit longer than we hoped. But can't wait to see what it turned out again. So here's kind of what the data collecting looked like. This top left corner is just a map of that little bitty strip of garden and all our little notes. There's even more than that. Like I said, we tried to take notes on every single plant. We're really trying to figure out what we're doing to compare for the future and compare to the past. And it's exciting. We also have that big whiteboard back there we did last year to keep track of all the gardens that we're collecting data on in Nebraska. There's a map of the actual bigger garden, the blue speckled garden at the college. And oh yeah, Ronnie's tricks. I don't know if you can see there's paper bags on that bottom plant down there. That's in the blue speckled garden at the college. So she tried to experiment, I guess, a little bit with this. Nebraska did have a late winter. There were a lot of replants. There was a late frost and people had to replant. They planted in May, it didn't work out, plants died, nothing came out. So they replanted in June. So this garden actually did have a lot of replants and a lot of kernels from different places. So we decided to see if we could experiment and pollinate ourselves. So we would cover certain corn that we thought would pollinate with the same kernels, see if we could get a stronger ear out of that, stronger kernels. Keep it away from the others that were replanted 3 weeks later that came from different areas, different years. So I can't wait to see. Ronnie did mark every single plant every year, so we will know this corn did come from this plant. It was pollinated with this other one. Can't wait to see if these kernels are stronger because of that. It'll be interesting to watch the data. Oh, and there's Ronnie, that was last week. She helped me for 4 hours in the dark collecting that data in the college. She's really into this. It's pretty fun. So again, there were some troubles this year with the gardeners in Nebraska. It was interesting to watch how they dealt with it. Like I said, there was a late winter. Most of the gardeners did regrow 3 weeks later, but there was good germination after that in June. And almost all the gardeners had windy storms come over and knock down ears of corn. As you can see in that bottom one, there was some knocked over that it was still young, so we had to prop it up and lean it against a stick and help it grow. Because this corn is so strong, it did just grow back. It grew an ear. And corn nowadays, if it gets knocked over by a storm, it'll die. It's not as strong as this corn. You won't get ears out of it. This corn's pretty amazing. It'll make it through anything pretty much. But there was a lot of wet weather too, a lot of rainstorms. So the ears that did get knocked down, there was some smug and diseases that got on them. As you can see, that top ear left on the ground, and it was wet. So the kernel actually did start growing on the ear, which is pretty cool, but not what we want. We want to save those kernels and grow them later, not grow them now. But there was Japanese beetles as well, which was a problem last year in Omaha. They really come in and devour everything, not just the corn, but all of their plants. And we only saw it in Omaha last year. This year they actually moved further west, and we saw them in Hastings this year. But luckily, Ronnie tried planting some other plants that would attract the beetles, and they eventually went away right after the silk started coming in. So thank God the ears still grew and the Japanese beetles went away. Hoping we don't see them any further west next year or the years to come, because that's where more gardens are. They're pretty scary beetles to run into. They swarm, there's a lot of them. And of course there was raccoons, and a lot of gardeners just put up electric fences around the corn. Yeah, luckily we only saw a couple this year and got rid of them as soon as the electric fence went up. So, I know years in the past that we had raccoons and they just ate almost all the ears after all that hard work. So I'm glad we got to get through this. And what's next? Now that we harvested most of the corn, there's all these kernels to get off the ears and preserve and distribute. I don't know if you've seen the post on Facebook that you can buy the blue corn that we harvested last year and this year that was turned into blue mush. It's really good, really healthy. If you guys want to try it, you should buy some. But yeah, there's all kinds of kernels there to pick and keep in this fall and in the winter. Like we're working on it all the time. I know Doug's always working on it when I see her, picking out the kernels and preserving them, figuring out what to grow next year. And of course we got all this data to analyze now, last year and this year. I can't wait to see what happens with that. Just really figuring out what we're doing to grow better corn in the future, to get what we want, to get this corn back to where it was, way back when. And another exciting thing is hopefully we get this DNA testing done. Several colleges have offered to help. We take the kernels and send it to them, they'll teach us or do the DNA testing themselves so we can see exactly how nutritious this corn is, how strong it is, compare it to the corn nowadays, compare it to corn that we have with each other, really see what we have, try to get it patented so people can see like this really is Pawnee corn and it's not a fake or a knockoff or some other type of corn. So we can't wait to see what happens. Well, maybe, hopefully, just to show that like it's not a different variety, it is Pawnee corn. Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you to the gardeners for sure. They do so much work, and we wouldn't have all this variety and all this new stuff coming at us without your help. I wish I could thank all the other gardeners too, but yeah, when I see them, I do. And just want to thank Deb and the Pawnee Seed Project again, the Pawnee Tribe for letting me have this cool experience, learn more about myself and my heritage. It's really fun. And that's all I have.
Like Taylor said, I was here, she was up here in Nebraska. I stayed down here to do the Eagle corn here at Dollars. And big difference. One thing I learned was not to plant in the shade. There's a big pecan tree there. Got everything prepared. Every put the corn kernels in there. And as they all came up pretty much the same time. And as they matured, we noticed that the corn that was closer to the tree were stunted. And as the shade moved and when it came out to the sunlight, the eagle corn stalks got a little higher. So they went from about this high on the ground back to 3 or 4 feet. And in full sunlight, they're like 6 feet high. So sunlight has a big influence on corn. And also we planted the rickrell seeds twice. So Debbie liked that little trench I built, and she put the seeds in there, she forgot to cover them. So when we came back Monday, all the seeds are cracked, because all the crows and birds had a feast that weekend. So that, with that, I'm going back out to do the rickrell sunflower seeds, and notice the crows are starting to come here, one here. One way down by the hospital said, "Hey, it's feeding again." So this time we covered them up. That also was planted in the shade. And those sunflowers also stunted in the shade. And as you moved away, they got higher. And when I went to Nebraska, I think the helper on at the college took a photograph of the sunflowers. They were about 6 feet high, I guess. But when I got there to the college, they were like 8, close to 10 feet high. The flowers were huge. So the soil is a big influence on the corn and the sunflowers. So, we did our data collecting, pretty much like Peter was doing. And the data we collect here, I like to compare it to the corn up there. And I'm sure it's gonna be a big difference, plus the influence of the soil and sunlight. So, eagle corn came out pretty well. They had Rick Ross, but no, Wichita's. So we had enough corn, eagle corn to feed Wichita's, so that was a good one. So we still got some more seeds left, so I guess I don't know what we'll do next year, what we're gonna have in store. Also, in our garden, Pawnee College planted Pawnee watermelons, and those came out pretty well a couple months ago. And ours is still coming up. Why? I have no idea. And they're, oh, it's mystery. So theirs is done, and ours is still growing. I don't know what happened there. So, but,
Did you guys grow any time frames?
yeah.
Yep, it's already in the freezer.
Oh!
So that's my little story of our Pawnee Seed Project, me and Kate. That's proud of Kate, that's work.
Hello, my name is Heather Henson. I am living in New York, and I've been doing shows about cranes for many, many years, and that led me on this long journey to learn more about visiting Nebraska every year, and then visiting the Platte River, and then wanting to learn more about the communities that maintain the beautiful land up there in Nebraska, and wanted to learn more about that and that area, and then that led me to learn in the Pawnee Seed Project. And then I'm so excited just watching what has been happening for the last couple of years with Kikita and going up there has been really exciting. So I have a lot of passions, and they all seem to align with what you guys are doing down here. Restoration of connecting soil and seed and people and animals, and kind of in that working towards a more harmonious, balanced lifestyle. Most of my work comes out in theater, but then also I've been doing more of these other projects too, I guess, and then workshops. And actually, so one thing is that we're inviting Mikai is going to come with us to Pioneers this year to do a little workshop about crafting. We're trying to make a craft. We often do a lot of our educational stuff as in some activity. So we do a show and then have lots of activities. So one of our activities, Mikai is going to be doing a corn project. We're not totally sure what it is. We're going to be experimenting on it tonight. So it's just more of a craft project with beads and wire, and to make a miniature corn. And we're trying to make, I went to the store and was looking for more blue beads, more in our blue corn. But we're going to experiment with that tonight, and that's something that we're doing later in October. But I love this community. Thank you very much for any time I can come up here. It's absolutely really delightful, and I've loved my relationship with Deb. I love cranes. I've been so inspired by watching the cranes on the Platte River. So this has been life-moving and shattering for me to see these cranes. So we are in talks of trying to see if we can do a trip to the Platte River. That's hoping we're going to do that. Would love it if this community could see some of that crane migration. It's changed my life, and so I was, anyway, hoping that happen. So Felipe here is my friend. He's a biologist. He's an expert, one of the best crane biologists, especially in the world. Good crane biologist, and he also knows the cranes very well from the full flyway, from Wood Buffalo all the way through the Platte River down to Texas, and and into Mexico, because originally the cranes would go all the way to Mexico. They still go to Mexico, sorry, Santil's whooping cranes don't go there, but he knows the full breadth of the full Turtle Island, the full continent. These birds go across all the birds. So I have brought him here today, so thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I know you guys are probably ready to go. I know it's this late in the day, it's hard to pay attention. I have some pictures. Hopefully that helps. So as Heather said, I worked in Nebraska a long time, and I worked up and down the flyway corridor. But many years ago, just kind of as a hobby, I started thinking about. We have fossil records for cranes going back millions of years, and we also have when the Europeans started moving through this continent, we have notes of what they saw and where they saw things. But then I thought, well, we used to have people here. They probably had something to tell us about cranes and other birds. So I've been trying for a long time, just trying to learn what different tribes have in regards to words for cranes, the different kinds of cranes, whooping cranes, animal cranes, and some other cranes that actually are extinct now. And just trying to see if there's any stories involved in their cultures, or even just the word itself. So for a long time I've been playing around with that, and the last few years I actually spent quite a bit of time in Oklahoma going through different tribes trying to look at that. So I'm just going to talk about the sandhill crane because this is what Heather is trying to hopefully get people to know. But cranes are basically a worldwide family of birds, very large birds, and most of these birds are 4, 5, 5.5 feet tall, sometimes 6. Probably don't need to go through all this stuff, but there's been a lot of birds that have disappeared over time due to extinction. Cranes in general don't perch on trees. We confuse a lot of cranes with herons, which do perch on trees. Those are a different family altogether. But there is one group of cranes that still perches on trees in Africa. It's the only crane here in North America we don't have. All ours are running around on the ground and wetlands. They don't hang out in the ground. And we do have the cranes that now exist only in Africa. We have some relatives of those species that used to be here in North America. So we used to have a crown crane actually in Nebraska. There's some fossils of these birds out there. But we no longer have, we only now have basically 2, the sandhill crane, which is this one, and the whooping crane, which is this big white bird. These are the rarest and the most common crane in the world. Whooping crane, the rarest, there's only about 330 individuals alive in the wild. And the sandhill crane with about 750,000 individuals out there. So we've got the most numerous of the crane species and the rarest of the crane species here in North America. And they all both migrate down the same corridor through Nebraska every year, up and down. This is what a whooping crane looks like out in the prairies of Canada, where it migrates through in the fall and springtime. Most of these birds are obviously occupied with grasslands, wetlands, or some combination thereof. They like open spaces. They like to look around. So all the prairies and weathers that we used to have in the Great Plains, we have a little bit of left now, is where all these birds did really well. This is a whooping crane nesting that's sitting on a nest in Wood Buffalo National Park in Canada. The whooping crane actually breeds in Canada, migrates down the central corridor through here actually, a lot of stops in Oklahoma, and then it spends the winter on the Texas coast. And then in the spring it goes back to Canada and repeats the process. But I'm going to talk mostly about the sandhill crane today, the other species that we have in North America. There's a lot of birds around. We have 3 migratory subspecies and 3 non-migratory birds. I mean, there's some populations that don't migrate. I guess they probably live in very pleasant conditions like in Florida and Cuba. Warm temperatures year-round, so they don't have to go anywhere. The other ones move around up and south. Basically, we have birds that breed in Siberia, Russia, and spend the winter in Mexico. So they migrate across the Bering Straits, go to Alaska, come through Canada, through the U.S., and end up in Mexico. And then in the springtime, they go back and do the same thing. It's quite an impressive feat movement for these birds. This is what some of these guys look like. When we look at the distribution, we have several populations, I guess, some that are occurring in the northeast part of the U.S. and southwestern Canada, or southeastern Canada, sorry. Those generally migrate towards Florida. Then we have the Rocky Mountain population over here in the Rocky Mountains. Those guys also migrate south to New Mexico, parts of northern Mexico a little bit. And then we have the other big population of, it's called the mid-continent population that breeds all over Canada, Alaska, all the way to Siberia, and those guys migrate all the way down to Mexico. And spend the winter in the southern part of the U.S., all the way from Arizona to Louisiana. Easy to see in the fall, they're very noisy when they migrate. I'm sure you hear them through here in the fall for sure, in the springtime. And the winter distribution is quite large for most of these guys. And the red is just kind of a reference to where the non-migratory populations are. We know that all the non-migratory populations are genetically connected to some of the migratory ones, so at some point some birds decided to just stop going through the migration process. They just have established non-migratory birds. Let's see, we're not going to talk too much about these guys. So this is kind of like, when you look at this in a different way, these birds that actually go all the way to Siberia and Russia, come all the way across the entire continent of the North America that we have, Canada, US, and Mexico. It's really incredible. Twice a year, these birds do this all the time. So it's quite a shocking situation. The population has been pretty stable. Obviously, natural populations go up and down a lot, but in general, you can see that it's holding up pretty well. At least the one that flies through this part of the world and spends the springtime in Nebraska, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about. Now, most of the wintering grounds, like for example in Mexico, look kind of like this. So they're very dry. Actually, the Chihuahua Desert is the area where these guys spend the winter time. So it's an arid land, it's not a lot of food, although they eat a lot of corn. Sometimes we're not even sure where they're picking up the corn because we can't find it. But we know they eat corn because we look at some other species and what they're foraging on. So they spend the winter in very arid lands in some cases. They have definitely become very well adapted to any place with agriculture that they take advantage of. They always look for crops. I mean, we've had tried to look at the diet all the way from Canada to Mexico, and more than 80% of the diet is always corn. Somehow we find corn everywhere. Even like I said, even when we see the closest cornfield in some of these places in Mexico are like 30 kilometers away, and they still have corn in their crops. So they're really keen on, but of course if you have to fly that far every day, even if you're eating well, you still spend a lot of energy. So the places where they spend the winter, they don't have a lot of opportunity to store energy. And I'll show you why that is critical later on. So remember, these guys start down here, dry lands in most cases, and they gotta go a long way. I mean, we're talking about 7,000 to 8,000 miles in some cases, and that's the Arctic. They're going to the Arctic regions. So they start off in subtropical regions and go up to very far areas. Now, when you look at this this map, you see the birds. If you were in Arizona spending the winter and you were going up here, I mean, the shortest way would be to go straight line right up. But these birds don't do that. They come to Nebraska first, so they actually sidetrack. They go backwards. So we know that birds with radios that were spending the winter in Arizona, instead of going straight up north where they want to go, they went to Nebraska first. Spent several weeks there, and then they took off. So why is that important? Why are they going or backtracking, 1,000 miles when they could have just gone straight up and got where they needed to go?
So have they always, say 200 years ago when there wasn't corn through that Flat River Valley, Nebraska, were they that still was their migratory path?
Yes, but probably not in this density as it is now.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, we didn't have radios on at that time, but unfortunately, we could go back. That'd be great. So we have these birds making these sidetracks and making what we call like this hourglass shape in Nebraska. So all these birds from very large wintering areas come and congregate in a very small area of the Platte River in Nebraska. So what is it about the Platte River that's important for these guys? Well, obviously corn, as I mentioned. There's a lot of corn involved there. And the river is a very important place for they can spend the winter at the river, or sorry, the night, they can roost in the river, they're protected from predators, and things like so. The Platte River is a stopover site for whooping cranes. I mean, whooping cranes come and spend a night or two, and then they move on. That's basically just if you were trying to just have a long drive, you just stop over there in a hotel and keep going, that would be a stopover site for you. But for sandhill cranes, the Platte River is a staging area. It's not just a place to spend the night, it's a place to spend the night and eat, and eat, and eat, and eat. Because sandhill cranes in Nebraska, they spend anywhere between 1 or 4 weeks there. So after they leave wherever wintering grounds are, they stop in Nebraska from 1 week to 4 weeks. And all they do is gain weight. I mean, they literally can increasing weight by 25% to 30% of their body weight in that amount of time. So they're literally just getting fat. They're storing energy in the form of fat. So when they're there, they basically spend the night in the river. They roost every morning. They go off to the feeding area, and they find a place to. Once they fill their crop up, with the corn, it takes a little while to digest. So they need to find a place to just relax, digest, hang out, and then they go eat again in the afternoon. And then they eat, and then they go to roost. Then they do this every day, every day, every day. So this is what the river looks like. If you don't know, everything, all this gray pattern in the river are cranes. Thousands of cranes. This is a flock of cranes in a field. So they spend the night there. They fly out to cornfields to eat. And we're talking about waste corn. This is the corn that was already harvested. This is what was left that could not be harvested. So it's a loss in essence. So you can see all the cranes distributed along the river. Again, sometimes it's hard to imagine, but all these are cranes right there. You know, and this is why Heather was talking in such an impressive set. When you take people out on a blind near the river in the morning, when it's dark and then it starts to light up, you say, "Do you see the cranes?" And they're like, "No, I don't see them." You're like, "The whole mass of grain are cranes. It's not like it's cranes." Like, oh, they expected to see 2 or 3 cranes, right? So that's why you can imagine this is not even as thick as it was earlier in the day. Thousands of birds just there in the river. So it's a very impressive sight to see when you're there. So then they go out and feed. Again, there's no shortage of corn, although we're now thinking that geese, which have now started to use the river a lot more than they used to because other parts have dried up, come to the river like a month before the cranes do, and they eat a lot of corn. So it's possible they're taking out a lot of the corn that the cranes would be utilized. And then they find a short grass field, preferably with some wetland or water, and that's where they do this loafing, resting the rest of the day. And then they go off to eat again and continue. And like I said, individual cranes spend anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks there. You don't spend too much time on that. And then they leave Nebraska and then they scatter all over the continent. They go everywhere, all the way to Siberia. So you can see they all start in the same place, and then they fan out all over. Yes?
Can you back up? I want to get the dates.
Which one? This one?
One more important.
That
Right
one?
here.
I can leave a copy of the presentation here.
Yeah. Oh, well, that would be nice for a college student. Thank you.
So it's very interesting to see how this population, almost 750,000 individuals, go to Nebraska and then they spread out all over the place. Now, why does that become? Again, I just like to show maps from a different perspective because sometimes you don't visualize. But if you look at the distribution of cranes from the top of the North Pole, that's what it would look like. So it's surrounding the Arctic and subarctic regions up in Canada, Alaska, and Siberia. So it looks different when you look at it this way. When you look at it as migrating to Siberia, you go, that's kind of weird. But if you look at it this way, it's like, well, that's exactly what they've been doing anyway. So why do they need to get so fat in Nebraska? Why do they need that extra fat? Well, they go to the Arctic regions to breed, for example, and when they get there, this is what it looks like. There's not an opportunity to feed very much here for several weeks until it actually thaws out. But they actually lay nests well before things thaw out. Those are 2 eggs in a hole in the snow. So in order to lay eggs in a place where you can't eat, means you have to have enough energy reserve to lay those eggs. And that's why that fat they accumulate in Nebraska is so critical. If they didn't have that, and they arrived under snowy and frozen conditions, they wouldn't be able to eat enough to lay eggs that way. So it becomes a very critical component of the life cycle of the cranes to have that fat. And so 30 days after they lay those eggs, the snow melts from sometime around May, and of course the blossoms, all the insects and all the production that occurs in those areas that occurs in such a short period of time means there's a lot of food for chicks to eat. And actually a very odd, but people always go, ooh, really? The primary diet of these guys early on is other chicks from other birds that they feed to this guy. So there's a lot of other birds breeding out there too, and these guys take advantage of that. So even though they eat mostly corn the rest of the time when they have chicks, they want to give them protein so it grows faster. Because there's hardly any corn in the Arctic regions, as far as we know.
And
But if there were, I'm sure they would find it. But
the other species chicks or the same, or
no,
other
the other
cranes?
species chicks,
Okay.
like shorebirds and things like that. So that's kind of the primary food items. So the Platte River is very, very important for the cranes. Now the Crane River is changing, or the Platte River is changing a lot for a lot of reasons. But if you look at the normal amount of water in the river over a year, this blue line is what it used to do under natural conditions. So, it starts slowing over the May, June, July. When the summer it would peak, snow melt and rainfall and all those things that happen. Well, we've changed that, so now this is what we have after dams have been built along the river. And that has created some issues for the river itself. It used to be very wide. Of course, if you have that much water coming through, you need a big, wide river. If you don't have a wide river, then it changes, right? So what's happened over time is that the river has become narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow. And so now we don't have those big, wide open expanses that we used to have. This is it's easier to understand than that graph I just showed you. Sometimes it takes a while to explain. So this is what a picture of a river used to look like in 1938. So this is, just imagine, this is more or less the water present there. This is the same area of the river in 1998. And this is the river now. So you can see that what used to be water in 38 before the dams is now mostly like wooded. I mean, those big trees actually are growing in this part of the world. So that, obviously, this is not good for cranes to show the pictures early on about what cranes like. They like open views, open areas, so that becomes a big problem. So there's been a lot of efforts to try to clean up some rivers mechanically because the water's not there anymore, but physically go out and remove some of these trees to make more room for the cranes. And it's working pretty good. There's a lot of different groups, conservation groups in the state and the federal government all have little chunks and pieces that they all kind of work on. So it's good to see that. We've seen also that if you look, let me see, between this line here, Pawnee, there's a lot of activity on the river as far as clearing it physically, mechanically, and very little on this side of Pawnee, on the western side. And if we look at this graph, this blue line shows the number of cranes west of Pawnee, and this line shows the number of cranes east of Pawnee. We can see they're congregating more and more in a smaller amount of area because there's less and less open river. And that's part of one of the problems too that we have is that before, when the river was open all the way to Colorado, they probably were all over the place. But now they've kind of, by necessity, what we consider like an incredible ecological phenomenon, it's a little bit artificial because it's because of human. Otherwise, it would be much more widespread. I mean, it would still be impressive, but it wouldn't be as concentrated as it is at this point in time. So this is an example of an area, unmanaged area, and that's the managed area. You can see the water begins to spread out a lot further. It's more open. This is all trees, so that makes it really hard to work there. Again, unmanaged, managed, so big difference. And of course, this is what water, that big peak of water I showed you in that graph used to do. We've come in and clear it up. Now we have to do it with tractors and other things. So yeah, that's just a few pictures. I know that's because the Pawnee used to be along the Platte River. There surely was some connection, at least some going on, because it's hard to miss some of these things. And I personally don't know that how much interaction stories you have out there, but there is this thing that apparently is part of a Pawnee, right? I don't even know the whole story, but there's a crane thing in here, right? You guys see it? The body, the feet, the head going up that way. This is, I mean, this is unmistakably a crane. It's not a heron, it's the shape of the body, the posture is clearly a crane, the feet, the toes are very different from herons as well. So, somebody in the past, somebody in the Pawnee nation did this, I guess. Commemorate what, this is in Kansas somewhere.
Yeah. It came from Matt, so Matt.
So probably an old Pawnee village somewhere, so there's some connection there, maybe it's been lost somewhere, but obviously, at least some appreciation for the fact that cranes probably shared a lot of territory with Pawnee back in the past, because they went through at least twice a year for the same areas that where the Pawnee were distributed in the old days. So anyway, that was kind of rushing, so you guys don't have to sit here all day, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to keep talking about other things. Yes?
While you were talking about the management on the west side of the state, east side, well, with the western side of the management portion of the state where the Platte River comes up from Wyoming, due to like a lot of the water irrigation now that's going on with the dammings,
Right.
our waterways, have a lot of an effect on the drain, a lot of that water that comes back through there. I noticed that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main change, was the fact that the water now just comes at a trickle instead of having this big rush, at least in parts of the year, maybe not all years, but most of the years.
Yeah, most of the years, yeah, the dam projects.
Right.
Yeah. But I know that, while with crane symbolism, it seems that, I think, in a lot of cultures, that the crane is important. They consider that as a holy bird,
Yeah.
and for some reason that it must, provide life.
Yeah, in some nations, it's part of the creation story, the cranes and some different animals, different ones, but the Miami is the symbol of the whole nation, is the Santa crane is for the Miami tribe. And that's it. The Miami tribe is the Santa crane, basically, is what the other seals have on it.
And I don't know if in our Pawnee culture, what the crane, what kind of symbolism that we have with it, but obviously,
Maybe it tasted good.
My grandpa used to call it the water bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grandpa Jesus used to call it the water bird. That's what he makes those feather bird, water birds. And his joy.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's kind of a religion type of symbol.
All right.
It's when you're on the Platte River, it runs east-west, and these birds, they all come alive. The sky up there turns this flame orange before the sun rises, right before the sun cuts over the horizon line. And it's at that moment that the birds all start talking and hopping and talking, and it's so magical. So, like I said, it hits me at such a core level. And the fact that because we're on this east-west, you're on this, this is your river. The Platte River is an east-west river, and all of those rivers there, they all run east-west, all of them, the Loop and the other ones too, because they're all coming from the Rockies like that. But seeing that sunrise on the river and seeing the reflection of the water and the sunrise, and it happens at sunset too on the west side, with this activity with the birds, it's just this cosmic conjunction that happens at the spring. I've never been there for a fall migration. I don't know if it's the same thing. Because they don't hang out, so they're not doing that thing you mentioned, like the eating, they're not fattening up to go north. But it's a really, I don't know, like I said, cosmic, I don't know, very aligning moment, because it's both a time moment of the sunrise and sunset and the directional moment. And it's a sunrise sunset thing but it's also, they're doing this migration of the north to the south. So I find it, and the fact that this happens right smack in the middle of the country, the continent, like that point is this Pawnee area is the smack in the middle of the continent, and all this is happening right there. So I think that's really very interesting.
I loved your, I love it, that was.
So I just want to say thank you for everyone for showing up. I really am glad that you were able to be here. And thank Gail for coming out and Brenda for keeping him in mind. And it's wonderful to have great friends like this, you know, that we can trust and work with and appreciate his words of encouragement. You know, we can start small. We should be glad that we never were eligible for huge farm loans to buy all that equipment. You know, thank goodness we were discriminated against. So now we can, you know, stay
In
within
a
our
good way,
means.
yeah. In a really good way. That was a blessing.
That's a blessing, yes. So, you know, it's encouraging to hear success. And what I like about what Dale says sometimes is, you know, I now have time to read books. You know, I now have time to spend with my family. And, you know, that's all beautiful things. I want to thank Heather for coming over today. And honestly, Fajita is a superstar in our seed preservation project. I want to thank her for all the plant growth characteristics data work that she's been compiling for these past couple years. That's something that we'd like to continue. We don't know if we'll patent per se, but we will be able to identify, you know, what is truly Pawnee. We know it matches data over 100 years ago already from Will and Hyde. And we have other things to learn. You know, we know some of our plants are from the Wichita. And thanks to Professor Monse, we will be going to Mexico to kind of analyze and see, you know, how connected are we to our neighbors in the south. So, you know, the seed story just keeps going on, brings us all together. And appreciate all of you for making it happen. Thank you.